You are on HOA rejected. The tow driver took one look and still tried to hook it. Kathleen yelled that I had violated the winter rules again, and she was adding it to my file for a hearing. You do not get to leave for work until this is compliant. She was standing at the end of my driveway in her purple wool coat, hood up against the icy morning, waving a clipboard with a plastic rain cover that was already fogging up in the cold. I had my snow shovel in one hand and my car keys in the other, and I was trying to understand how running a generator during a blackout had become a compliance violation in the Parkside Snow Emergency Corridor Reserve Association. This is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We lose power in winter. That is what generators are for. I work as a restaurant kitchen manager. My shift starts at 5 in the morning, and I run on tight timing and prep windows. If I am late, the breakfast line does not get prepped, and the whole day falls apart. Kathleen knew that. She had been timing these confrontations for weeks, always right when I needed to leave. This one started because the power went out at 3 in the morning. I dragged the generator out of the garage, set it on the concrete pad near the side door, and ran an extension cord inside to keep the fridge and the heat running. By the time I finished shoveling the driveway at 4:30, Kathleen was already there with her clipboard, taking photos and claiming the generator was a nuisance device that violated the snow emergency rules. I need to get to work. I do not need your explanation, I need your payment. She tapped the clipboard. You are parked in violation of the emergency corridor designation. Your vehicle will be towed at 6 unless you provide proof of compliance and settle the existing balance. What balance? She pulled a folded paper packet out of her crossbody bag and held it up like a trophy. You have 3 outstanding snow-related citations. 1 for generator placement during a declared emergency. 1 for failure to break up plow-deposited ice chunks within 4 hours of service. 1 for driveway runoff creating a slip hazard on the sidewalk. That is $750. The generator was running because the power was out. I could not break up ice chunks in the dark at 2 in the morning, and the only runoff on that sidewalk came from the HOA plow dumping slush against my curb and then driving off. She smiled. You are not the first person I have corrected, and you will not be the last. Now, are you going to pay, or are you going to let the tow truck take your car? That was when I realized this was not about safety. This was about punishment. Kathleen had been the self-appointed compliance officer for the Parkside Snow Emergency Corridor Reserve Association for 2 years, and she had turned winter enforcement into a personal power trip. Every snowfall became an opportunity to write citations. Every ice patch became a violation. Every generator, every shovel, every bag of salt became evidence that someone was not following her version of the rules. I let her talk, because every word was helping me. My health had been fragile for the past year. Sleep disruption was making it worse. The stress of these confrontations was keeping me up at night, and the lack of rest was compounding everything. I could not afford to let this continue, but I also could not afford to escalate it into something that would cost me my job or my house. I will handle this later. I need to leave. She stepped in front of my car. You are not leaving until you sign acknowledgement of the towing notice. I am not signing anything. Then your car gets towed at 6. She checked her watch. That gives you 40 minutes to change your mind. I pulled out my phone and started recording. She noticed immediately and turned her face away, but she did not leave. Instead, she pulled out her own phone and made a call. Within 2 minutes, a tow truck turned onto my street. The plow was scheduled to come through at 7. Kathleen was using that as leverage to trap me. If I left my car in the driveway, she would claim it was blocking the emergency corridor. If I moved it to the street, she would claim it was parked illegally during a snow emergency. Either way, I was going to get towed, and either way, I was going to miss my shift. I called my friend Derek. He is a CPA, and he had been helping me review the HOA financials after I noticed some red flags in the monthly statements. He picked up on the second ring. They are trying to tow me right now. Can you get over here? On my way. The tow truck pulled up and idled at the curb. The driver got out, looked at Kathleen, looked at me, and then pulled out his own phone. He dialed a number, put it on speaker, and suddenly the whole situation turned into chaos. The dispatcher came on the line and asked for confirmation of the tow order. The driver read off the address. The dispatcher asked who authorized it. The driver looked at Kathleen. She tried to grab the phone, but the driver stepped back and kept talking to dispatch. The dispatcher said there was no active tow order on file for that address. Kathleen started yelling that she had filed it through the management company portal and it should be in the system. The dispatcher said the management company had not submitted anything. Kathleen tried to talk over the operator, her voice getting louder and more frantic, but the driver just shook his head and told dispatch he was canceling the call. No order, no tow. He climbed back into the truck and drove off. Kathleen stood there with her clipboard fogging up and her face turning red. I kept recording. She looked at the camera, looked at me, and then turned and walked back toward her house without another word. If you are enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter of HOA chaos. Derek showed up 10 minutes later with a folder full of printouts. He had been digging through the HOA ledger for the past 2 weeks, and he had found something. The management company was adding legal fees to resident accounts without authorization. Every time Kathleen filed a violation notice, the management company would tack on a processing fee, a compliance review fee, and a legal consultation fee. None of those fees were in the HOA bylaws, none of them had been approved by the board, and none of them were itemized in the monthly statements. This is fraud. Derek spread the printouts across the hood of my car. Look at this. Every notice Kathleen files generates 3 separate charges. The HOA gets the fine, the management company gets the fees, and Kathleen gets a commission for every completed enforcement action. That explained why she was so aggressive. Every violation she could stick was putting money in her pocket. The generator citation. The ice chunk citation. The slip hazard citation. All of them were generating fees that were being split between the management company and Kathleen, and the HOA board had no idea it was happening. I need to file a complaint. Derek nodded. I already drafted it. We just need to attach these invoices and send it to the board president and the HOA attorney. Once they see this, they are going to have to respond. I sent the email that afternoon. I attached the invoice trail showing the bogus legal fees, the commission structure, and the management company contract clause that explicitly prohibited unauthorized charges. I copied the entire board, the HOA attorney, and the management company director. I kept the subject line simple: records complaint, unauthorized fees, request for immediate audit. The response came back in less than an hour. The board president wanted to meet, the management company director wanted to meet, the HOA attorney wanted to meet. Suddenly, everyone wanted to talk. But Kathleen was not done. That night, she sent an email blast to the entire neighborhood framing me as the one resident who refuses winter safety. She claimed I had ignored multiple warnings, refused to comply with emergency protocols, and created dangerous conditions for other residents. She included photos of my driveway with the generator running and the ice chunks scattered across the pavement. She did not mention that the power was out, that the plow had dumped the ice, or that I had been shoveling at 4:30 in the morning. She just made it look like I was the problem. The email triggered a coordinated harassment push using the management company and the tow vendor together. Within 24 hours, I received 3 more violation notices, 2 towing threats, and a lien warning letter. All of them cited the same fabricated safety violations. All of them demanded immediate payment, and all of them came with the same legal fees that Derek had already flagged as fraudulent. I forwarded every single one to the board president and the HOA attorney. I added a note: this is retaliation for filing a records complaint. Please advise. The attorney responded within the hour: do not pay anything. Do not sign anything. We are investigating. The next morning, the HOA plow came through and left a massive pile of ice chunks at the end of my driveway. Kathleen showed up 10 minutes later with her clipboard and demanded I break them up immediately. She said it was a safety hazard, and I had 4 hours to clear it or face another citation. I started recording again. I filmed the pile. I filmed the plow driving away. I filmed Kathleen standing there with her clipboard timing me, and then I called the management company and asked them to send someone out to document the plow damage. They refused. They said plow operations were outside the scope of resident complaints. I asked who authorized the plow to dump debris in my driveway. They said it was part of the emergency corridor clearing protocol. I asked to see that protocol in writing. They hung up. Derek came over that afternoon and helped me dig through the HOA governing documents. We found the snow emergency policy buried in an appendix. It said the HOA plow was responsible for clearing the main streets and cul-de-sacs, and residents were responsible for clearing their own driveways and sidewalks. It did not say anything about plow-deposited debris. It did not say anything about 4-hour deadlines. And it did not say anything about compliance officers issuing on-the-spot citations. Kathleen made all of that up. We kept digging. We found the management company contract. We found the enforcement guidelines. We found the fee schedule. And we found the smoking gun, a group chat message where Kathleen told the management company director that the goal was punishment, not safety. She wrote, "We need to make an example out of this one so the rest of the neighborhood knows we are serious." That was the trump card. That one message proved intent. It proved retaliation. It proved that Kathleen was not enforcing the rules, she was weaponizing them. And it tied directly to the invoice fraud Derek had already uncovered, because every citation she filed was generating fees that went straight into her pocket. I forwarded the screenshot to the board president and the HOA attorney. I added a note, "This is what you are dealing with. Please act accordingly." The board called an emergency meeting for the following week. Kathleen found out and tried to preempt it by scheduling her own compliance hearing the day before. She sent me a notice demanding I appear at her house to answer questions about the generator, the ice chunks, and the slip hazard. She said if I did not show up, she would recommend the board move forward with a lien. I showed up with Derek and a voice recorder. Kathleen opened the door and immediately started talking. She did not invite us in. She just stood there in her purple coat with her clipboard and launched into a scripted speech about winter safety protocols and resident accountability. I let her talk. Derek took notes, and when she finally stopped to take a breath, I pulled out my phone and played the group chat message out loud. Her face went white. She tried to grab the phone, but I stepped back and kept playing it. The message was clear. The intent was clear. And the retaliation was clear. She stammered something about context and misunderstanding, but Derek was already recording her response, and she knew it. The emergency board meeting happened the next day. I brought Derek and the full invoice trail. The HOA attorney brought the management company contract and the enforcement guidelines, and the board president brought Kathleen and the management company director. The attorney started by outlining the complaint: unauthorized fees, fabricated violations, retaliation, commission payments. He laid out the timeline and the evidence, and he made it clear that the management company had breached the contract by allowing Kathleen to operate outside the approved enforcement guidelines. Then Derek presented the invoice trail. He showed how every violation notice generated 3 separate charges. He showed how those charges were being split between the management company and Kathleen. And he showed how the total amount collected over the past 2 years exceeded $60,000. The board president looked at Kathleen. "Did you know about this?" She tried to deflect. She said she was just following the management company protocols. She said she did not know the fees were unauthorized. She said she was only trying to keep the neighborhood safe. The attorney cut her off. He pulled out a printed copy of the group chat message and read it out loud. "We need to make an example out of this one, so the rest of the neighborhood knows we are serious." He looked at her. "Does that sound like safety to you?" Kathleen did not answer. She just sat there with her crossbody bag in her lap and her clipboard on the table, staring at the wall. The management company director tried to argue that the fees were part of a standard enforcement package, and that Kathleen had misunderstood her role. The attorney shut that down immediately. He pointed to the contract clause that explicitly prohibited unauthorized charges and said the management company was liable for every dollar collected. The director started backpedaling, but the board president was already asking for a motion to terminate the contract. It passed unanimously. Then the attorney turned to me. He said the board was prepared to void all snow-related citations issued under Kathleen's authority. He said the HOA would refund the snow-related fines and fees collected over the past 2 years. and he said the management company would be required to provide a full accounting of all charges and a timeline for restitution. That was not enough. I wanted Kathleen held accountable. I wanted her removed from any enforcement role, and I wanted a guarantee that this would not happen to anyone else. The attorney nodded. He said the board was also recommending that Kathleen be removed as compliance officer and barred from any HOA leadership position for a period of 5 years. He said the new management company would be required to implement a transparent fee structure and a resident appeal process. And he said any future enforcement actions would require board approval before fines could be issued. Kathleen stood up and tried to leave. The attorney stopped her. He said there was one more thing. He handed her a lawyer letter that forced a retraction and a refund. He said she had 48 hours to issue a written apology to the entire neighborhood and to return every commission payment she had received. If she refused, the HOA would pursue civil action for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. She left without a word. The board president thanked me for bringing the issue forward and said the HOA would be conducting a full audit of all enforcement actions over the past 3 years. He said any resident who believed they had been wrongly charged could file an appeal and receive a full refund. 2 days later, Kathleen sent the apology email. It was short and vague, but it was there. She admitted that some enforcement actions had been handled incorrectly, and that she regretted any confusion or inconvenience. She did not mention the fraud. She did not mention the commissions. She did not mention the group chat message. But the email was enough to trigger the refund process, and within a week, every affected resident received a check. But the story did not end there. 3 weeks after the board meeting, I was outside breaking up another ice pile left by the new plow service when a car pulled up and a man in a business suit got out. He introduced himself as the HOA attorney for a neighboring community and said he had heard about the Parkside case. He wanted to know if I would be willing to share the invoice trail and the enforcement timeline, because his community was dealing with the same management company and the same pattern of unauthorized fees. I gave him everything. Derek made copies of the ledger. I forwarded the email chains, and within a month, that community had filed their own complaint and terminated their contract with the same management company. Kathleen tried one last stunt in early March. She showed up at the sidewalk salt pile outside my house and tried to dump a bag on camera, claiming I had left it there as a hazard. My doorbell camera caught the whole thing. She pulled the bag out of her trunk, set it down, stepped back, and took a photo. Then she sent the photo to the new management company with a complaint about improper storage. The new management company forwarded the complaint to me and asked for my response. I sent them the doorbell footage. It showed Kathleen arriving, placing the bag, taking the photo, and leaving. It was time-stamped and geotagged. The management company responded within an hour. They said they were closing the complaint and flagging Kathleen's account for harassment. They said if she filed any additional complaints against me, they would recommend the board pursue a restraining order. That was the moment I knew it was over. Kathleen had lost her enforcement power, her commission income, and her credibility. The HOA had terminated the corrupt management company contract and implemented a transparent fee structure. And the board had put safeguards in place to prevent anyone from weaponizing the rules again. By April, the snow was melting and the neighborhood was quiet. Kathleen stopped showing up at my driveway. The new management company stopped issuing frivolous citations, and the board started holding open meetings where residents could review enforcement actions and appeal decisions. Derek and I kept digging through the financials for a few more weeks. We found another $15,000 in unauthorized charges that had been buried in prior years. The board referred the case to the state attorney general, and the old management company ended up settling with the HOA for a full refund plus penalties. Kathleen was not named in the settlement, but the terms included a clause barring her from any future HOA involvement in the state. The generator is still sitting on the concrete pad near my garage. The HOA attorney reviewed the placement and confirmed it was compliant with all local codes and HOA guidelines. No one has complained about it since. I still work the early shift at the restaurant. I still shovel my driveway at 4:30 in the morning, and I still deal with ice chunks left by the plow. But now, when I see a pile of debris blocking my driveway, I take a photo, send it to the management company, and they send a crew to clear it. No citations. No fees. No harassment. Last month, a new family moved in 2 houses down. They are from out of state, and they did not know anything about the Parkside drama. The husband knocked on my door one evening and asked if I had any advice about dealing with the HOA. He said he had received a notice about his mailbox placement, and he was worried it was going to escalate. I told him the whole story. I showed him the invoice trail, the group chat message, and the settlement agreement. I told him about Kathleen, the fraud scheme, and the attorney intervention. And I told him the most important thing: document everything, keep your records organized, and do not let anyone bully you into paying fees that are not in the bylaws. He thanked me and said he felt a lot better knowing there was a process. He said he had been afraid he was going to end up in a fight he could not win. I told him that was exactly what Kathleen had counted on, and that was exactly why she lost. The Parkside Snow Emergency Corridor Reserve Association is still here. The board is still active. The rules are still enforced. But now, the enforcement is fair, transparent, and accountable. And when someone tries to abuse the system, there are safeguards in place to stop it before it spirals out of control. I appreciate you showing up today.